Perhaps the simplest kind of percent problem is one in which you buy an item and you have to pay tax on it. Well, if this item costs $2,600 and the tax is 7.8%, all we have to do is multiply 2,600 by 0.078, because we got to move the decimal point 2 places to the left, and we get the amount of tax, 202.8, which is the same thing as 202.80, and we add them together to get the final price, including tax. Now, the cool way of doing this is to multiply 2,600 by 1.078. And the reason that works is simply this. 2,600 times 1 is 2,600. And 2,600 times 0.078 is the tax. And when you multiply that by 1 point the tax rate, you get the whole shebang all at once, $2,802.80. Now, the cool part about that is to work a problem like this backwards, that is where we come in with type 2 coming up shortly. But to get back to the original price, if you know the price with the tax included, you don't multiply that by the tax rate. You have to instead divide it by 1 point the tax rate, which is 1.078. And you get right back to your $2,600. Very cool. The second kind of problem is this. You have a number such as the cost of something, and that price includes the 5% tax. What that means is, if you want to know the price before tax, you do not take 5% of the number that has the tax in it. Instead, you realize that the price before tax is unknown, and the tax is 5% of that unknown, and the total cost, including tax, is going to be the sum of those two things. Well, again, this is 1A plus 0.05A, because B is 5% of A, and this is 1.05 times the cost before tax. You divide that by 1.05 and you get $209,300. The third kind of problem that comes up frequently is one like this. You're going to sell your car on consignment through a dealer who gets 25% of the selling price, and that's critical. It's not 25% of what you want left, it's 25% of the selling price. So what does it have to be in order for the seller to be left with $48,750? Again, it will not work to multiply that $48,750 by 25% and adding it on, because the commission is not 25% of that, it's 25% of the selling price, whatever that happens to be. Now, here's a little insight. If the dealer gets 25% of the selling price, then guess what? The seller must get the other 75%. Typically, you have to take that dollar amount that the seller wants to get and say that's the other 75% of the selling price. So I just divide that by 0.75, and the answer gets bigger because 0.75 is a number between 0 and 1. When you divide by a number between 0 and 1, a positive number, you get a larger answer than the numerator. Shocking. And here's a little summary. 25% of a number plus 75% of the same number equals 100% of that number. Let's now look at some problems that you've seen before. We've already worked problem 1. I've labeled it a type 2 problem. And problem 2, if you're going to put away some money at 5% interest, then it's going to grow to $3,000 in 1 year, but you do not figure out how much to deposit by taking 5% of 300, because that is 150 bucks. And 2850 would be what you deposit, but 5% of 2850 is not 150 bucks. So the only way to do this really is to recognize that the $3,000 must represent the amount deposited plus 5% of the amount deposited. That makes it 105% of the amount deposited. And you have a simple division problem. And don't forget to round to the nearest dollar if you are so asked. Okay. Another type 2 problem is number 8. You've seen this before. We pay the tax, so they're going to sell a barbecue pit for 400 bucks, tax included, and the tax is 8.125%. That is 0.08125. And you must divide the 400 by that, because why? Because the $400 represents 100% of the selling price plus 8.125% of the selling price. And then you round it off, because the 2 just to the right of the 94 cents is not big enough to make it 95 cents. There's the type 3 problem that we just worked is the same one that you see here. There are a couple of other problems which don't fall into any of these categories. One of them is you have a price increase or decrease. And the formula for increase or decrease is you take the difference, in this case, 2,500 minus 950, and you divide it by the old price, not the big one, not the little one, but the old one, because the percent change is always based on the old price. Even if it goes up or goes down, does not matter. This one happens to come out even. It says to round to the nearest 0.1%, but if it comes out even, you just could put the answer there without putting 0.0 or anything like that. All right. This is the most tricky one of all, I think. The $18,900 was the out the door price, and it includes $201.60 in fees, 6% sales tax on the actual cost of the bus, and the actual cost was 10% less than the sticker price. There's a lot of information in here, and it's all important. We want to get the sticker price. First thing we got to do is subtract the fees, which are not taxed. So I get 18,900, and I subtract 201.60, and I could just put 6 or 60, it doesn't matter, and hit equals, and this number includes the tax of 6%. That means that number is 106% of something. So you don't just take 6% of that and subtract it out. You amazingly have to divide that by 1.06. So let's do that. 1.06. And that's the price after the discount. The discount was 10%. What that means is this is the other 90%. And that's why you realize that if it's 10% off, it's 90% on. So I'm going to divide that by 0.9 and get $19,600 as advertised. All right, in case you have a problem where you have to figure out 2 categories like wins and losses or males and females, you take what you want for the numerator. The clue is the winning percent. So you divide 55 wins by the total of 55 and 27, which is 82. And it says right answer to the nearest 0.1%. So when you do the division, you get 67.07%, and the 7 is big enough to make it 67.1 when you round it off. Likewise, and this we had a quiz on recently, and a lot of people did the wrong problem. They gave me the percent of males instead of the percent of females. So basically, the number of females divided by the number of students. So that's 100 divided by 195. Even though it says for every, what that simply means is you could divide the student body into many groups of people. Every group has 100 women and 95 men. And that turns out to be the same thing no matter how many groups there are. When you do the division, you get 0.5128, but it says, guess what? To the nearest 0.1%. That means change it to a decimal, 51.28, and then 0.1%, that's where the 2 is. The 8 would be 0.01%, and that's why. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all there is to it.